Hi everyone, I'm Miranda and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I'm going to be sharing my November book haul, which I have to say is a pretty impressive book haul in that November was an amazing month with lots of exciting book releases. So I was tempted to buy quite a few books, and I was also sent some amazing books by publishers. So it was a really great book month and I can't wait to share all of these books with you. First up, I bought this new edition of Black Narcissus by Rhubarb. I absolutely love the Virago Modern Classics editions. These hardbacks I think are beautiful, and this one is especially stunning. I mean, look at the cover. It's just glorious. And in this edition there's an introduction by Amanda Coe, which is very good too. I'm a big fan of Rhubarb, but I hadn't read Black Narcissus before. I did read this book this month and I'll be sharing more of my thoughts on it when I talk about the books I read in November. But I really wanted to read it because I actually thought the new mini-series on TV of Black Narcissus was coming out at the end of November. Actually, in the UK, it looks like it should be coming out sometime in December. But I'm glad I've read the book in preparation anyway. It's such a dramatic plot, and the setting as well is just so atmospheric. You can see this is a story that really lends itself to film. There's a famous old movie of the book, but I'm also really excited to see the new mini-series. So this was definitely a great book purchase this month. And then I was sent this book, which is Agatha Christie, A Mysterious Life by Laura Thompson. And it's a newly done paperback of this very highly recommended biography. I think it first came out in 2007. So this new paperback edition has been updated a bit, which is great because I adore Agatha Christie. I mean, I'm such a fan of Golden Age crime, and I think she really is the queen of crime. However, I've never read a proper biography about Agatha Christie, so I'm really excited to. Laura Thompson also wrote a biography of Nancy Mitford that I've featured on this channel before. I think she's such a good writer, and I know I'm going to really enjoy this. Agatha Christie had a very fascinating life, and I can't wait to find out more about her by reading this. Then I got a couple new Persephone books that I bought this month. The first one was Random Commentary by Dorothy Whipple. I was really excited to get this. I love all of Dorothy Whipple's novels, and Persephone Books have republished them all now. She's one of their sort of main writers that they have republished. And this is actually a collection of her journal and diary entries. So I really love it because you get a real glimpse of who Dorothy Whipple was as a person. She was such a modest writer, but I found this a really comforting book in some ways because in it she really wrote a lot about her own insecurities over writing and some of the setbacks that she had early on in her career, but also how she overcame them, her experiences of writing during the Second World War. She certainly lived during a very eventful time in history, and this is just a really charming book. It's very slight to read, but if you're a fan of Dorothy Whipple, I would really recommend it. And I actually read it at the beginning of this year, but I had to get a copy of the book from the London Library because it's been out of print and impossible to find, really expensive to buy second-hand. So I'm so pleased that Persephone Books have republished it now and that everyone can get a copy and read it because I so enjoyed it. And if you are someone who loves Dorothy Whipple's books, or if you're interested in writing, then I think this is a lovely read. And then I also got this new Persephone book, which is the new Magdalene by Wilkie Collins. This is one of his earliest works, and I hadn't actually heard of it before. I've never read it before either. And at first when I saw it, I thought it might be the new Magdalene and sort of be about university life or something. but actually it's about a reformed prostitute. And Magdalene, and one of the sort of archaic meanings of the word Magdalene, is a reformed prostitute. So I'm really interested in reading this. Like I said, it's about a young woman who grew up in a sort of travelling society, and she decided to reform her life. She was previously a prostitute, a woman of the streets, and it sounds like it will be typically as melodramatic Wilkie Collins story, but I absolutely love The Woman in White and The Moonstone by him, so I am keen to read more of Collins's fiction. So I'm definitely intrigued by this, and I think it sounds like a good addition to the Persephone canon as well. So I'm excited to read it. Then I was sent this book by the publisher. It's 50 Words for Snow by Nancy Campbell. It's absolutely beautiful, as you can see, and will make a great non-fiction read for over winter. Also, as a former linguistics university student, I'm really interested in this book because Nancy Campbell looks at languages from all over the world. I think over 50 languages she looks at, and she looks at different words and expressions used for snow and the significance of snow in many different cultures and within mythology and storytelling, and it just sounds like a really fascinating read. So I was really excited to get this one. Then, right before lockdown happened at the beginning of November, my mum went to one of our local bookshops and bought some books for me, which was lovely because we wanted to support a local bookshop, but I couldn't leave the home because I was so busy recording and stuff right before lockdown. So my mum went for me, and she chose 3 books for me that she knew I would like and that I wanted. So first up, she got A Surprise for Christmas for me. This is a British Library crime classic book, and it's a selection of short stories. They're all sort of from the golden age of crime writing, and they just look like really fun seasonal mysteries that I'm sure I'm going to enjoy reading throughout December. And then she also chose this for me, which I thought was very clever of her. It's called Death and the Brewery Queen by Frances Brodie, and it's a Kate Shackleton mystery, which I haven't read any of these before, but they sound really good. And it says, it's the spring of 1930 and private investigator Kate Shackleton responds to a call for help from the owner of Barleycorn Brewery in the North Riding of Yorkshire. The brewery's books don't add up, but when the one employee who may know what's really going on meets with a fatal accident, Kate's investigation intensifies. So it's a real Yorkshire series, I think, and I definitely want to read more books set in Yorkshire now, so I was excited by the Yorkshire setting of this one, particularly being in North Yorkshire, and I'm really keen to read it. I love Golden Age style mysteries too, so I thought this was a very clever purchase by my mum. I was excited about that. And then at the same bookshop, my mum also picked up Silver Sparrow by T.R.E. Jones for me, which she knew was on my wish list but wasn't a book that I'd got yet. And I'm really excited to read this because I loved An American Marriage by the same author, and this sounds like such a good read as well. Lots of people have recommended it to me too, so I'm really looking forward to getting to this book soon as well. But thanks again to Mum for choosing such great books for me. And then I was also sent this book. It's a proof copy of a new book that's out in the Josephine Tay mystery series by Nicola Upson. It's called The Dead of Winter. And in this series, Nicola Upson uses the real life Josephine Tay, who was a brilliant mystery writer herself, wrote a lot of Golden Age mysteries, and in this series Nicola Upson imagines Josephine Tay as a bit of a detective herself. And I think that's such a fun idea. This is the latest in the series, but this is a proof copy. It's obviously out actually in hardback. But it sounds so much fun. It's set in St. Michael's Mount in Cornwall over a Christmas, I think in the 1930s, yeah, December 1938. And it just sounds like it's so much fun. I think that's an amazing setting. I've been to St. Michael's Mount in Cornwall and it's so atmospheric. I think it's really clever to set a mystery there, and in the winter I can only imagine some of the storms and all the excitement that will no doubt happen in this book. So I'm really looking forward to this one as a December read, hopefully. I was also sent this book by Dialogue Books, and it's Moody Bank by Arenison Okoji. This is the new paperback edition that's just come out in November. I actually read the hardback last year and really enjoyed it. It's a collection of short stories, and Arenison Okoji is just such a remarkable writer. She has a really distinctive voice. There's a real surrealist quality to her writing, which I find really interesting, and I admire her because I think she's just very original. She's got a really original mind and writing style, and I enjoy that a lot about her writing, and the themes that she has throughout her stories about female anger and also language and all sorts of things. They're really interesting to read, and I think this is a really great collection of her short stories, so I really recommend it. And then I was also sent this book, which I can't wait to move to my bedside table very soon. It's A Poem for Every Winter Day, edited by Ali Asiri, and I'm so loving this series of poetry books. I have A Poem for Every Autumn Day, which has been either on my bedside table or my mum's bedside table. Sometimes she sort of sneaks the copy from me. But this starts in December, and so it will be going on my bedside table very soon. There's some really lovely poems in this. I've already been flicking through it, and yes, it will just make some lovely bedtime reading. Then I was sent a proof copy of this book, which is The Thief on the Winged Horse by Kate Mascarenhas, and this just came out in November. It sounds really interesting. It's about a family of doll makers who are somehow magically able to impart emotions, be they good or bad emotions, into the dolls that they create. However, for some reason over time, the rule has become that only men are able to create the dolls in this family. However, a young lady born into the family, Persephone, wants to become a doll maker herself. And that's just a really interesting premise to me, so I'm looking forward to reading this and hopefully I'll enjoy it. Then I bought this collection of Christmassy short stories that are also great sounding mysteries. It's Christmas is Murder by Val McDermid, a chilling short story collection. Haven't dived into this yet because I've been saving it for December, but I think it looks really good and I can't wait to read these. I love a good mystery short story collection at this time of year, and I also loved the gorgeous cover, which you can see, by Angela Harding. So I was really excited to get this. And then someone on Instagram kindly recommended this book to me. It's called Rhubarb, The Correspondence Between a Hopeless Gardener and a Hopeful Cook by Mary Jane Patterson and Joe Thompson. And it's a lovely collection of letters shared between the two women, one of whom is a professionally trained chef and the other is a professional gardener. And they swap tips on both of their best subjects with each other. And I've started reading them and I find them really charming. There are some photos given in the book as well, and lots of little recipes too that they share with each other, as well as gardening tips. There are nice little illustrations as well that you can see, and it just is quite a charming friendship, and it's a real it's a charming book, sorry, and it's a real ode to friendship as well, which I really love. So thank you for this recommendation. And then next I was sent this book by the publisher, which is called The Silent Stars Go By Sally Nichols. This is a YA novel. I loved Sally Nichols's former YA novel, Bright Things a Woman Can Do, something like that anyway. And I was excited to read this, and I did read it this month and I enjoyed it. And one of the reasons I loved it, not only is it because it's set just after World War I, and I find that such an interesting period in history, but it's also set in Yorkshire, which is lovely. And it's about a young girl who's had to make the decision to give up her child to her parents and have this young boy brought up as her brother rather than her son, because he is illegitimate. And it's just a really poignant, touching story. And I think that Sally Nichols handles a delicate subject like that, and I think she was partly inspired by her own family history too to write this book. And I think she handles the subject really sensitively and really well for a YA novel. But there are some really charming Christmassy scenes in the book too, because it's set throughout December, and I really loved that about it too. It made it a really nice Christmas read. And then I've been sent some proofs from publishers of upcoming books too, which I'm excited to dive into and read soon. The first is A Net for Small Fishes by Lucy Jago. This is out in February, and I think it's meant to be a really great new historical fiction book. It's about a real-life scandal surrounding two women that occurred in James I's court, and it sounds really good. It's also one of those books that I've listened to the author speak about it a bit in a virtual event that Bloomsbury held. I've read the press release, and I still don't quite get what it's about. It's like they so don't want to give anything away. It's actually a bit difficult to realise what the book really is about. But it is about a real life trial, I think, and a crime committed by two women, and it just sounds really fascinating. So I am interested to read it, and hopefully once I have, I'll be able to actually tell you a bit more what it's really about. But it does sound interesting, so I'm looking forward to it. And then next I was sent this book, a proof of it. It's called Madam by Phoebe Wynne. Yes, that's her name. And it's a debut novel, but it sounds really good. It's set in a boarding school, and it's meant to be a sort of gothic twist on a boarding school type story. A young woman has just become employed at this very sort of elite female boarding school, but strange things start happening, and she soon finds out that her predecessor sort of disappeared or was dismissed in very mysterious circumstances. And it sounds quite creepy, quite chilling, but also really gripping read. And I'm definitely interested in things set in a boarding school. I think that's a really clever premise for this book, so I'm excited to read it. I think that one will be really good, and it's also out in February next year. And then this is another proof of a book that's out in January 2021, and it's called One Night New York by Lara Thompson. I think this is also a debut novel, but it's about two women. It's set in the early 1930s, and I think it starts out with two women who are meeting on the Empire State Building, and they're planning the revenge against a man who has wronged both of them, which sounds like a really dramatic opening, and it sounds really like, well, a really interesting read. I'm intrigued by the New York City setting too, so I'm hoping I'll enjoy this one. And then next I was sent this book by the publisher. It's The Mitford Trial by Jessica Fellowes, and it's the latest in her series of mystery books, again using a real life writer, Nancy Mitford, and Jessica Fellowes has cast Nancy Mitford in the role of detective. So she and her maid end up solving a lot of mysteries together. But I think what makes these books so interesting is that Jessica Fellowes also delves into the rest of the Mitford family a bit and some of the real life events that happen to them. And what's also very interesting about her mystery books is that she bases a lot of them on true cold cases, so historical crimes that were committed but never solved. She of course finds an explanation for them in her books, and I think that's a really interesting part of how she writes. So I'm really eager to read this one as well. And then I'm a big fan of the writer Pen Vogler. She wrote Dinner with Mr. Darcy and Dinner with Dickens, which I love both those books. They're a great collection of recipes, as well as a bit about the lives of Jane Austen and Charles Dickens and the types of food that was eaten in their lifetimes. And this is her new book, which is called Scoff, A History of Food and Class in Britain. And I'm finding this really fascinating. I've been sort of dipping in and out of it. And it covers some really interesting ideas. For instance, things like why avocado toast is such a middle class type of dish, why school dinners are always called school dinners, not school lunches. And there's so much about class and food and social history and how all those things are linked within Britain that I find absolutely fascinating. And Pen manages to write about this topic in such an engaging way too. So I'm really enjoying this so far, and yeah, I can't wait to read more. And then finally, I was so delighted to be sent this beautiful book, which is the official Downton Abbey Christmas Cookbook by Regular Isewin. I haven't seen all of the Downton Abbey series, but I actually started watching Downton Abbey properly during the first lockdown, sort of back in March, and then my move kind of interrupted things. But I think I've seen the first 3 seasons, and I definitely want to watch more because I've been really enjoying the Downton Abbey series. And this is a gorgeous cookbook. It shares many favourite scenes from the Christmas Downton Abbey episodes, as well as recipes. There's also some interesting bits of information about the female chefs from Downton Abbey. Regular Isewin has written a lot of great cookbooks I've enjoyed. I've also interviewed her on my podcast in the past, and I think this is definitely a must for any Downton Abbey fans. But it's also just a beautiful Christmas book full of lovely inspiration for beautiful Christmassy table settings and dishes. So I was really thrilled to get this. But anyway, those are all of the books that I've been lucky enough to get this November. Do let me know if any of them appealed to you. Did you buy any of the same books, or what books did you get in November that you think I'd enjoy? I'd really love to know, so do share. And please give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and you can subscribe to my channel by clicking my face that pops up over here on the screen. I'll be back again soon with another bookish video, so until then, take care, bye!